Hello students, welcome to the lecture on pricing strategies, and after this lecture we will be able to learn the following objectives. Study about price and non-price factors, analyze differential pricing strategies, understand the international pricing strategy and study the product line pricing strategies. Let us start our lecture. The price one assigned will impact how consumers view our product and whether they will purchase it. Price also helps differentiate our product from those of your competitors. However, the price one assigned must be in line with other marketing strategies and the product attributes. Whether or not one develop a formal marketing plan, performing some of the research necessary for a marketing plan prior to determining the pricing strategies you will implement is important.
So let's take a look at some pricing basics. First, the price in the market mix is the only P that actually generates revenue. So what do I mean by this? Well, if you look at product and promotion and place, they all have one thing in common. They cost money. All right. It costs money to develop a product. It costs money to create advertising, to create sales materials, hire salespeople to sell it. Of course, if you're doing any promotional pricing, that will bring the cost down. Which is a pricing strategy. And then place, there is the cost of warehousing, moving your product from place to place in order to get it to the consumer. And sometimes you even have to pay slotting fees to retailers to showcase your product. Pricing, however, is directly connected to revenue. Okay, even if you have a sales promotion, that allowance or price discount goes into an expense category where the price or the money that you bring in for selling your offering goes into the revenue column. All right, not going to try and teach accounting here, but suffice it to say that it's very important to price your offering correctly to make sure you're meeting your marketing objectives. Right? And it is a very complex process. I'm going to be presenting it in a very straightforward manner today, but there is a lot that goes into determining the value that consumers will exchange for your offering. Now, in the traditional for-profit business model, that value, of course, is money. But there are other exchanges of value that can be considered, particularly in the nonprofit world. So let's take a look at some of these marketing objectives. Okay. First of all, if you are a startup company, you'll often find that your marketing objective is simply to stay in business. And this is called survival. Right? Very, very simple, but not easy concept. So your pricing is created in order to cover your variable costs and some of your fixed costs in order to stay in business to the point where you are making a profit at some point. All right, you're keeping your prices fairly low, but you don't want to keep them so low that you get into one, legal trouble for undercutting prices, or two, you need to understand where it fits in terms of what your competitors are offering, because you don't want to devalue your offering and you don't want to be higher than your competitors as you're trying to build a name for yourself and survive in the industry. And again, this is often the strategy that startups use. A profit objective is what we typically consider when we think of the price that a consumer pays for an offering. You choose the price that creates the maximum profit. One way you'll see this in retail is setting a target return. That means that there's X amount of money that you want to make whenever you sell a product. One way to do this is a markup. So if it costs you X amount of money to make your product, you might add 30%, ensuring that you get a target return of 30% on your price. What you're trying to do here is keep your prices in line and your costs in line in such a way that you're making a margin, a profit that meets your objectives for your business and your business outcomes. Right? Another way to look at pricing is pricing for volume. Right? This is when you're using pricing to increase sales volume. So you're not as worried about every little thing you sell because you make more money with volume. Right? This is really true of Walmart. Walmart knows that it takes a lower margin. Its prices are less. And a margin here, margin is another way to say profit. Okay? So they know that overall they're going to make less profit than, for example, on their clothes JCPenney will. However, they know that they can increase their sales volume with their pricing strategy, and since they sell more, they make more. This is one way to maintain or increase your market share. So if you look at your market and at this X amount of dollars, you have about a quarter of the market. If you drop your price by 1 or 2%, you might be able to gain more of that market or sell more volume and increase your market share. All right. Another reason to have a volume objective, and again, Walmart is in this category, is that you're trying to create a high obstacle for competitors. All right. If you know that your competitor does not control their costs as well as you do, therefore can't price a little bit lower to sell more, it's going to make it less attractive for that competitor and to enter your market. Now, there is another way to think about this, and that is that product quality makes a difference. So in this case, you're charging, sometimes just immediately, high prices to cover higher performance quality, research and development, and branding. You will often see that drug manufacturers for prescriptions will certainly increase the price of their drug because of all the research and development that goes into it. When you look at branding, you'll notice that, for example, branded cereals through General Mills, who are fantastic marketers, are going to cost more than a store brand cereal or a price brand cereal like the ones that come in the bags. Right? So they're going to say, hey, yes, it's just all corn, but we're going to charge more because we know that there is a performance, a marketing, a branding quality that consumers are willing to pay. Another reason to set your prices high, and this is kind of out of the cereal category, but it's to develop and maintain an image of quality and exclusivity. If you look at designer brands, this is what they do. They're not going to charge a lower price and sell in a discount warehouse because they want to maintain that image and that exclusivity that their consumers are willing to pay more money for. So let's look at some for-profit pricing strategies. And if you look here, the marketing strategies are predominant. You have quality, right, which we talked about, and price. But you've got two different options here. You're either pricing for, here you've got profit with skimming and premium pricing, or you're pricing for volume with penetration and economy pricing. All right, so let's take a look at what some of these mean. First of all, economy pricing is that low price, low quality. It's cheap stuff, right, that you can buy a lot of and you don't worry about it so much if it breaks or you need to replace it because it's cheap and you'll just buy more. All right, so low price, low quality, high volume. Premium pricing, and I'm kind of looking at these extremes right now, either the premium or the economy, and the premium pricing will have a high price for a high quality good. All right, so here you're looking at, for example, designer shoes. Okay, you know that it's high quality, you're willing to pay the high price as a consumer, and the business knows that they're looking for profit and image. Okay, they're not going for volume. You're not going to sell as many high-priced shoes as you will at Payless Shoe Source, but that's okay because Payless makes it up on volume. All right, so that's where we look at penetration. Now, although penetration is included in the high quality, low price, it doesn't always mean like the lowest price. Okay, you have good quality and you have a low price for it, so you're creating a value. All right, you want to make sure that you are selling enough to penetrate the market or have more consumers in your market that choose your good. Right, so that's like the pie chart that I showed you before, where you're getting a little bit more of the slice of the pie. Okay. You're going for volume here because the more someone buys of your product, increasing the share of your pie, the less they're buying of your competitor's product, which is what you want. Okay? Skimming is a profit objective, and although it says low quality, high price, it's kind of in that quadrant is limited. It's actually good quality stuff with a high price. Now, why would you do this? Okay, if I'm saying here that it's a profit motive, what you're trying to do is, if you're an innovative company, you get your innovation out there. For example, the first time a digital phone came out. Okay, or let's use the Wii for an example. First time the Wii comes out, nobody has anything like it. All right, the Wii comes out at a much higher price than it is today, because they know it's going to take, Nintendo knows it's going to take their competitors some time to figure out the technology and start selling their own. While that gap is in place, they want to make as much money as they can, because they know at some point their margin, their profit margin, is going to decline because competitors are going to catch up. Okay? And so the skimming strategy you will often see in electronics, things that have very short product life cycles. All right, from beginning to when competitors come in is a fairly short amount of time.
The knowledge gained from the research will help in assigning appropriate prices to your products or services. Prices that reflect the quality and attributes your product offers the consumer. Your marketing goals and knowledge of the industry, your competition, and the market are essential. Here are some questions you'll need to consider to help determine objectives and strategies that will contribute to the success of your business. What then is the key to a consistent proactive marketing strategy? Many pricing objectives are available for careful consideration. The one you select will guide your choice of pricing strategy. You'll need to have a firm understanding of product attributes and the market to decide which pricing objective to employ. Your choice of an objective does not tie you to it for all time. As business and market conditions change, adjusting your pricing objective may be necessary or appropriate. How do you choose a pricing objective? Pricing objectives are selected with the business and financial goals in mind. Elements of your business plan can guide your choices of a pricing objective and strategies. Consider your business mission statement and plans for the future. If one of your overall business goal is to become a leader in terms of the market share that your product has, then you'll want to consider the quantity maximization pricing objective as opposed to the survival pricing objective. Did you know profit margin maximization seeks to maximize the per unit profit margin of a product? This objective is typically applied when the total number of units sold is expected to be low. Coming back to the topic, a company that has sources of income other than from the sale of products may decide to implement this pricing objective, which has the benefit of providing customer with a quality product at a cost lower than expected. Competitors without other revenue streams to offset lower prices will likely not appreciate using this objective for products in direct competition with one another. Therefore, this pricing objective is best reserved for special situation or products. Profit margin maximization seeks to maximize the per unit profit margin of a product. This objective is typically applied when the total number of units sold is expected to be low. Profit maximization seeks to garner the greatest dollar amount in profits. After selecting a pricing objective, you will need to determine a pricing strategy. This will assist you when it comes time to actually price your product. As with the pricing objective, numerous pricing strategies are available from which to choose. Certain strategies work well with certain objectives, so make sure you have taken your time selecting an objective. Careful selection of a pricing objective should lead you to the appropriate strategies. If the pricing strategy you choose seems to contradict your chosen pricing objective, then you should revisit the question posed in the introduction and your marketing plan. Pricing your product based on the prices your competitors have on the same product. This pricing strategy can be useful when differentiating your product from other products is difficult. So let's say you produce fruit jam such as blueberry, strawberry, blackberry and raspberry. you may consider using competitive pricing since there are many other jams on the market and you are unable to differentiate your jams to an extent that customer may be willing to pay more for yours. Thus, if the price range for jams currently on the market is $1.45 to $1.85 per jar, you may price your jam at $1.65 per jar to fall in line with the competition. The strategy of competitive pricing can be used when the pricing objective is either survival or status quo. When the objective for pricing products is to allow this business to either maintain status quo or simply survive a difficult period. Competitive pricing will allow the business to maintain profit by avoiding price wars from pricing below the competition or falling sales from pricing above the competition. The same product is offered in 3 different formats, with the price for each level rising above that of the previous level. For example, the manager of a farm market that sells fresh apples may place some portion of apples available for sale in a large container through which the customer have to sort to choose the apples they wish to purchase. These apples would be priced at the good price. Another portion of apples could also be placed in a container from which customer can gather, but these apples would have been pre-sorted to remove less desirable apples such as those with soft spots. These would be priced at the better price. The best apple, those priced higher than the rest, may have been pre-sorted just as the better apples, but have also been pre-packed for customer convenience. As demonstrated in this example, the better and best levels require more attention by management or labor, but if priced appropriately, may be worth the extra effort. This pricing strategy should be used when pursuing revenue maximization and quantity maximization objectives. Revenue maximization should occur as a result of quantity maximization. It seeks to get customers to purchase a product in greater quantities by offering a slight discount on the greater quantity. In the display of prices, a price for the purchase of just one item is displayed along with the price for a larger quantity. A customer purchasing just one item will pay more for the item than what you would typically charge if you were not using a multiple pricing strategy. The multiple pricing strategies works well with the profit maximization and quantity maximization objectives. By enticing your customer to purchase more than one item, you are generating more profit since you have set the price for just one item so that you receive a greater profit margin than for which you would typically price. Essentially, the customer is being penalized for purchasing just one item. In addition, multiple pricing should increase the quantity of items being sold, hopefully resulting in less product loss or fewer unsold items. It is used to attempt to get customer to spend a little extra on the product by purchasing options or extra features. For example, some customer may be willing to spend a little extra to be assured that they receive product as soon as it becomes available. This can be an excellent strategy for custom operators. Let's say one is a custom operator providing 4-H harvesting services. One's base service option provides producer with basic harvesting. It is used to gain entry into a new market. The objective for employing penetration pricing is to attract and grow market share. Once desired levels for these objectives are reached, product prices are typically increased. Penetration prices will not garner the profit that you may want. Therefore, this pricing strategy must be used strategically.
Hello Ben, can I explain any marketing concepts?
Professor Siegfried, what is premium pricing?
Well Ben, premium pricing is a pricing technique of artificially maintaining a high price for a product or in order to encourage favorable perceptions among buyers. Based solely on the price. A premium pricing strategy involves setting the price of a product higher than similar products. This strategy is sometimes also called skim pricing because it is an attempt to skim the cream off the top of the market. It is used to maximize profit in areas where customers are happy to pay more, where there are no substitutes for the product, where there are barriers to entering the market, or when the seller cannot save on costs by producing at a high volume. It is often called image pricing or prestige pricing. Luxury brands have a psychological association with premium pricing.
Thanks, Professor, for explaining a premium pricing strategy.
Employed when the product you are selling is unique and of very high quality, but you only expect to sell a small amount. These attributes demand that a high or premium price be attached to the product. Buyers of such products typically view them as luxuries and have little or no price sensitivity. The advantage of this pricing strategy is that you can price high to recoup a large profit to make up for the small number of items being sold. The product they really want, but for a little extra, they also receive one or more additional items. The advantage of this pricing strategy is the ability to get rid of overstock items. On the other hand, customer not wanting the extra items may decide not to purchase the bundle. This strategy is similar to product line pricing, except that the items being grouped together do not need to be complementary. Used when a range of products or services complement each other and can be packaged together to reflect increasing value. This pricing strategy is similar to the multiple pricing strategies. However, rather than purchasing a greater quantity of one item, the customer is purchasing a different item or service at a higher price that is still perceived as a value when compared to the price for the individual product or service. The underlying principle in all the strategies discussed here is that the best strategy in certain circumstances is not apparent until certain shared economics or cross subsidies are taken into account. In a shared economy, one consumer segment or product bears more of the average cost than another, but the average price still reflects cost plus acceptable profit. The use of such economics may be triggered by heterogeneity among consumers, firms, or elements of the product mix. The pricing strategies can be broadly classified into three groups based on which of these three factors affects a firm's use of share economies: differential pricing, whereby the same brand is sold at different prices to consumers; competitive pricing, whereby prices are set to exploit competitive position; and product line pricing, whereby related brands are sold at prices that exploit mutual dependencies. The price strategies discussed here all arise primarily because of consumer heterogeneity, so that the same product can be sold to consumer under a variety of prices. The three strategies discussed refer to consumer heterogeneity along three dimensions: transaction cost that motivates second, market discounting, demand that motivates periodic discounting, and surge costs that motivate random discounting. These conditions enable a firm to discriminate implicitly in the prices it charges its consumer. In industrial and wholesale markets, explicit price discrimination, whereby a firm changes different prices to two competing buyers under identical circumstances, is illegal under the Robinson-Patman Act's amendment of the Clayton's Act, unless a price-cutting firm can meet specific defenses. Can any one of you tell me how does price and non-price competitiveness of experts of manufacture competitive strategy help? You will learn the answer soon. Let's continue. The pricing of industrial products can be a different process. There are many factors that affect the pricing professional decision to select a pricing strategy. To further complicate matters, the world's national economies are becoming increasingly independent and more global in scope. The increased internationalization of these economies adds an additional level of competition from which companies can benefit. Although there are many pricing strategies that can be used domestically and internationally, there are a few that are strictly associated with the pricing of international products. The first of these strategies is transfer pricing. It was the topic of fairly intense discussions and research among marketers in the 1970s. Today, transfer pricing still warrants serious consideration since it has important strategic implications that can directly impact overall corporate income. It is especially important since there are many international factors that influence the types of transfer pricing strategies utilized by pricing managers. Transfer prices refer to the prices that one division or subsidiary of a company charges to another in a different country. There are different types of transfer prices. The one most frequently used is economic in nature. Economic transfer prices can differ in two respects. This means that products can be transferred at the market price or at cost. The level of the transfer price will typically depend on the differentials in the income tax in the countries involved in the transfer. Export pricing and domestic pricing are different. Different overseas market condition, different costs, different quoting formats and different currencies all affect what you charge your customers for your products or services. Pricing for any market requires an understanding of the relative cost, demand and competition of that market. Many overseas contacts you meet will want to know our price, so it is essential to have our pricing determined before we approach an overseas market. Before you can determine the prices you should be charging for your goods or services, you must first be clear about the total cost to your business of exporting that product or service. In a commercial background and especially in international trade, the term counter-trade stands for a trading method that differs from standard trading methods, basically its finality. The element that distinguishes counter-trade operation is the undertaking of commitments that usually have the function of creating an added value for the economy of the countries involved in the transaction, and that in most cases is a proof of cooperation between the parties. Therefore, we are not talking about a pure exchange of goods for price. The parties involved undertake additional counter-trade commitments. These commitments can differ widely and can be determined by the parties' negotiation power. See below. If considered condition in a technical or legal sense, counter-trade is not a condition method of trading. Condition not being a characteristic element of the transaction, as the fulfillment of it does not depend on a future uncertain situation to happen. Counter-trade is not an altruistic or unselfish way of trading, nor is it a form of the so-called fair trade. On the contrary, the lucrative purpose of the companies that use this method is unquestionable. Neither do we talk about trust-based contracts, but about cooperation-based trade. It has been noted that counter-trade is a way of trading that relies on hostage-based contracts, by which the firms can have a guarantee when assuming risks that are inherent to international trade. Counter-trade or reciprocal buying is defined as a transaction involving at least a two-way transfer of goods rather than a singular transfer of goods for money. The main objective of this paper is to explain the extensive use of counter-trade both between countries and between firms within one country. In a simple game theoretic model, it is shown that counter-trade may be a rational business strategy for firms with buying power, and that the impact on welfare is negative even in the case where no firm exists.
Hello class, can I explain any international marketing concepts?
Professor Siegfried, how would you define counter-trade?
Well, Fiona, counter-trade involves exchanging goods or services which are paid for, in whole or part, with other goods or services, rather than with money. For example, a dental care manufacturer exchanged 200,000 toothbrushes packaged in bulk for advertising worth twice the amount of the toothbrushes. Another example was Mercedes, who traded Mercedes trucks for Cuban bananas. In conclusion, counter-trade allows companies to become more flexible and quicker in the face of international competition.
Thanks, Professor, for explaining counter-trade.
The model is consistent with the observation that counter-trade occurs mainly in homogeneous goods industries, that trades are relatively balanced, and that the practice is more widespread during recession than during booms. The growing importance of counter-trade in international trade has started to attract the attention of international organizations who view counter-trade as a return to bilateralism and reciprocity, and thus as a threat to the multilateral world trading system. This view is partly reflected in the fact that some forms of counter-trade are being negotiated under the heading Trade-Related Investment Measures (TRIMs) in the Uruguay Round 3. Classifying counter-trade transactions is not a simple task, as they are business strategies that have been used in different moments of the past and with different purposes, always depending on the economic and political context of the poor country or countries involved. Since counter-trade broke in international trade, it had taken many different forms. We can even talk about different generations of counter-trade operation, those of the 60s, the 70s and the 80s. Another form should be added to these, which is characteristic of the 90s, a decade in which offset and barter operation in agreements between government played a key role. The counter-trade commitment is a characteristic element in a counter-trade operation. Its importance in a specific transaction depends on the method chosen by the parties to carry it out. It can be a firm commitment or a best efforts commitment. The latter only guarantees a good predisposition to reach an agreement. Failure to reach it is not considered a breach of the commitment. The content of the commitment differs widely. It can consist of a payable purchase of some specific goods or services opposite. However, modern counter-trade operations usually imply more complex commitments so that their fulfillment brings an added input for the importing country. In these cases, the commitment entails the building of a factory, the launching of a product onto the international market, the installation of a telecommunication network, etc. Counter-trade is used by firms and governments of countries all around the world. Capitalist and controlled economic countries, developing and developed countries take part in counter-trade operation. When controlled economic countries, such as the countries in the formal socialist area, are implied in counter-trade operation, the government or some government firms establish commercial relationship with private firms, mostly multinationals. Besides, counter-trade operation in which several parties are involved can take place in a wide range of contexts. One of them occurs when trading houses responsible for launching the counterpart goods on international markets take part in the operation. They intervene in virtually every kind of parallel purchase from the beginning or at a later stage. Relevance of the parties' negotiation power. One of the most important and complex stages of a counter-trade transaction is the negotiation phase, during which various meetings take place between the parties by which they put in common the interests that move them to perform the transaction. The final configuration of the operation is largely determined during this first stage, in which the negotiation power each party, which is determined by several factors, plays a key role. Will you be able to answer this question? When is homogeneity of prices accepted? Now, in the end, let us summarize what we have learned in the lecture. The global economy continues to offer opportunities to all firms, while at the same time making it difficult for them to turn the opportunities into profitable ventures because of the intricacies and uncertainties associated with pricing their products in foreign markets. The hurdles are numerous, but they should not dissuade a firm from venturing into the global marketplace. Developing international pricing strategies that are based on the characteristic of each individual foreign market will go a long way in helping a firm earn substantial profits. A standardized ethnocentric approach to pricing will not work. The road to success in one foreign market is not the same one to follow in another.